So I'm Eric Lavin, and for the past decade, I have been working in the thick of and around the edges of education. And today, I'm excited to share a perspective whose ideas form the basis of a new company called IdeaFire. But before we get to that, I want to start with the past. And in the past, education is largely defined by students receiving knowledge from a static source. And then when the test comes around, they regurgitate those specific facts back to the teacher or whoever's giving the test. So when I used to be a civics teacher, I would ask my students about the Declaration of Independence. When did it happen? Who signed it? Why was it important? This type of thing. But with the ubiquitous internet, I just had to figure out a way to put this into the slide. The game has changed. And I believe that the future is going to be defined by student-generated insights. And so if I was to go back to be a civics teacher, and with IdeaFire I am kind of doing that, I wouldn't ask about 1776 and the Founding Fathers and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I would ask my students to engage in a conversation, a global conversation even, about what are the modern implications of the Declaration of Independence, or who was left out in 1776. In 1965, and who's being left out today. And I think if you ask these types of questions to kids, you'll get some very interesting answers. And right on cue, we have some kids walking in. In the existence, yes, we can give them a round of applause, it's all about kids. In the existence of this youth insight is really the basis for the whole company. And the big idea behind the company, which is that right now, we should harness the wisdom of young people to improve the state of the world, and it's incumbent upon all of us, the thinkers and doers and generally concerned citizens across society, to help young people navigate our uncertain future. Because the future is coming, and there are questions being posed that are unprecedented. Questions like, how are we supposed to live when we have innate access to universal knowledge? What does it mean to work alongside intelligent machines? And perhaps most critically, how are communities going to cope in the networked age? These are questions that affect all of us, but ultimately they're being posed to young people. This is the world that they will be entering very shortly. And I think if you give them the chance, young people will have interesting ideas to offer. And came to the slide a little bit early, but I first became aware that young people could do this when I was a teacher. And I was not a very good teacher. My students had this incredible energy, and often the energy would overtake me in the classroom. But occasionally, something good would happen. And my students would become caught by the possibilities presented by an idea. And when this curiosity was sparked, it created an outlet for their energy. And it led to inquiry, and they could remix this idea in conversations with their friends and their family, with me, with people from the community, with ideas from the past and the present. And I came to see how this spark of curiosity, if supported and nurtured, had a transformational effect. And I think we all know what I'm talking about. When ideas and people meet, it is a special thing. And when ideas catch fire and feel passion and creativity, it is the most powerful force the world has ever known. And with young people, it's particularly powerful. They see the world with fresh eyes, and they have the ability to imagine things that their elders cannot. And I think as we look at the future, if there's one thing we need to do, it's we need to strengthen these curiosity and imagination muscles. Because the future is coming, and it's coming fast. And we're going to need curiosity, imagination, and adaptive thinking to adjust the problems in front of us and those on the horizon. I've been to conferences in San Francisco where a graph like this is shown. And as you may know, you may not be able to read it, but it's a simple graph. It basically shows human population over time. And something happened about 500 years ago, and boom, the population starts going up, and it really tells an incredible story of technological innovations and revolutions, and the trend is undeniable. More people living longer and more prosperous lives. We can also look at this and say, wow, we're at an interesting moment, and we can be caught by the magnitude of this time. And as this fair points out, future is coming. History is not over. And so I think this graph presents us with a question, a challenge. Which way will our society trend? And this is a question that we might ask to each other, but it's a question Hollywood asks very often. And there are two stories in particular that I think offer the extreme ends of where our societies can trend. The first, we have Star Trek, a post-scarcity economy where diversity and collaboration and exploration for exploration's sake are the norm. And the other, we have Mad Max, and actually we have a discarded vehicle from that in the back playing that music. That's a joke. But Mad Max is a post-apocalyptic world where there's violent competition for resources and oppression and war, and this is the norm. And I think all of us can look at our present world and look at history and see how our certain attitudes and behaviors could lead us either way. But I think if we think for a second or imagine for a second about harnessing the best of young people, their attitudes and their perspectives, we might see a clearer path towards a Star Trek-esque world. And I think this is a good thing because it won't be the current crop of leaders that definitively determine our path. It will be the next crop. And this statement, scaling education innovation is our silver bullet, might seem extreme, but I think it's true. Because education has always been the mechanism through which we produce citizens to lead us and navigate our future. And everything of significance about whether we go Star Trek or Mad Max gets determined in the next couple of generations. If that weren't enough, the stakes continue to get higher. With each new technological breakthrough and advance, our world becomes more complex. The VR, the drones, the human-like robots, and the cool skateboards going on in the expo hall, they make our world more complex. And this is the world we're leading to the next generation. And so a ninth grader will enter the workforce in 2025, and a kindergartner will enter it in 2033. And what kind of world will we have in 2033? And how are we going to prepare this kindergartner for this world? Well, this is the work of education innovators. And I have some good news and bad news for you. The good news is that we've got a lot of education innovation. And I think this is a trend that largely started 30 or so years ago, maybe even before. And these are interesting, passionate leaders who are creating new educational contexts and experiences that are exposing young people to the challenges and the opportunities of the world around us. And they're developing in them the skills, the mindsets, and the habits to be successful. I'm not going to mention any of them specifically by name, but if you come check out our website, IdeaFire.co, we'll be putting some of our favorites up in the next couple of days and weeks and months. But I promised you bad news. And the bad news is very simply that education innovation does not scale very well. And I think this is an important point in Silicon Valley because there is a difference between education and technological innovation. I won't go into the details, but I'll just share this one thing. Education needs to be grounded in the context of the community where it happens. And that means that each time, the wheel must be reinvented just a little bit. It's because education is a relational business. And I think education refers to anything where someone is influencing a student. It certainly refers to this teacher. I've never seen a teacher look like that. And teachers work in schools, and schools are rightly the center of a kid's educational life. It's where the majority of our government and philanthropic funding, the US government will spend $45 billion on education in the next 4 weeks, and then the next 4 weeks after that. But if you add up all the time a kid spends in school over the course of a year, and you take away the 8 hours a day that they're sleeping, it comes out to 20% of their time. So I would include all of us in this category of educators. It's parents, it's coaches, it's guides, it's mentors, and more. Because education happens wherever and whenever a young person is influenced to think about the world and their place in it. As the African proverb says, it takes a village to raise a child. And so if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this talk, it's that education is important, the stakes are high, and making sure that the next generation is ready for the future is a team effort, and it needs all of your ideas and all of your energy. So connect with me, connect with each other, connect with the educators in your life, and figure out how you want to get in the game if you're not already there. Because the game is on. And what game are we playing? I think the purpose of education is this: to prepare graduates to navigate a life of happy and productive citizenship. And this actually relates nicely, wouldn't you know, to the 3 questions we asked at the beginning. How will we live and learn with innate access to universal knowledge, happiness? My great friends at the Big Quiet did an awesome job reinterpreting what happiness can mean in the 21st century. And I want to suggest that these questions, they're questions for all of us, but they're really questions for education innovators, because they're the ones who need to prepare students to navigate this fast approaching world. And so as we think about these 3, I'm just going to go through each one of these challenges pretty quickly. How do we live and learn with innate access to universal knowledge? Well, education has always been about inspiring students to engage with the world and find their passion. But paradoxically, this has become harder with the internet. We're drowning in oceans of data, and we're not sure what is relevant. And as we look around with people with the power of the Library of Alexandria in their pockets, we think about how much time they're spending on mindless scrolling and clicking. So what if we could take a cue from these very successful games and apps that have cracked the code on internet habits and point those habit-forming techniques to self-directed learning? Can we get kids addicted to learning about the world around them, to help them make sense of the oceans of data and find things that resonate most? What if instead of searching for Pikachu or the latest filter, they were searching for the future of whatever? The next challenge. Education has also always been about how do we prepare people with skills to be successful in the economy? But economic opportunity is also being redefined by the 21st century. It's being redefined by robots who can flip pancakes and machines that can do other jobs that humans have done, like driving and retail and accounting and lawyering and many, many more. And so what will the future of jobs be? The shorter answer is we do not know, but we know that it will require humans to differentiate themselves from machines. But it's not just jobs that are changing, it's careers as well. The average person graduating high school today, not in 2033, but today, can expect to have 12 to 14 different jobs over the course of their career. How does this evolving labor market look to the eyes of someone about to enter it? So what if this game-like experience I just spoke about could be pointed at discovering and it's crowdsourcing the labor market from the eyes of a person like this, and could teach these 21st century skills, or be pointed towards these 21st century skills, things like communication and collaboration, creativity and leadership, and curiosity and imagination. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, how will our communities cope in the networked age? Education, again, has long been about citizenship and creating the good society. And this too has its unique challenges in the 21st century. You may have heard that you live in a bubble. The internet, which connects us instantaneously around the world, has blocked us off from our neighbors in a way. So what if 21st century citizenship meant reaching across these bubbles and seeking out new relationships and experiences with people you wouldn't ordinarily meet? We saw how Pokemon Go could get people off of their couch. What if we could get people out of their homes to broaden their idea of what America is and could be? So as I come to a close, I want to end with a note of optimism. Because as our mad scientist, there he is, Michael Weiss, pointed out yesterday, and I know that he's going to bring back the real World's Fair to America very soon, before 2033. But yesterday in his talk, he pointed out that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And this is absolutely true of education. There are incredible teachers and educators of all stripes who are innovating with methods and preparing students for success in this 21st century. We are now officially in the era of scaling this education innovation. And one more reason to be optimistic. We have the raw ingredients. Young people, they have so much potential, and all we need to do is point them in the right direction. And as this picture, which was taken from the marches happening around the country last week, points out to us, young people can also help us be better. Think better, do better, and lead better. We should follow their example. Thank you.